Hey, what is going on, my fellow godlies? This is Fans from Orion and Warframe God Builds, and it is September 2nd, Friday 2016, just a few hours removed from my second Let's Play episode on my Twitch live stream. And before I did that, I wanted to talk in depth about this podcast that Digital Extremes released for Warframe. It's called The Second Stream, Episode 2. It was released not all that long ago, and the interesting thing about it is that it talks about some topics that I've wanted to talk about in depth for a while now. Actually, since update 18.13, the video that I did on that, I've been wanting to talk about those topics. So with Warframe, I wanna state before I get so negative, before I have another rant, I wanted to state that I still look at Digital Extremes as my favorite development company. I've been burned before in the past, obviously, Cacao Games, Dom, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, with Black Desert, and then Bungie with Halo. So this is what this video is all about. The list of topics that they included was the fusion in Endo, the nullifiers, the trials, aka raids, Titania, and Umbra. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to record this commentary live, but I'm going to have to go in and video edit it later, so it'll probably come out at a later date, maybe this weekend, maybe the next, I don't know, but I'm going to have to video edit in all the commentary that was talked about in the podcast. That way you understand what they said versus what I said.
All right, so our first topic for the podcast is the simplification of the fusion system. Now, that is the goal we sort of explicitly set forward, is that we want to make it simpler. We did this on PC on August 19th by introducing Endo into the game. Endo is defined as the fusion energy in its rawest form. So Endo is given to players as a result of turning their fusion cores into Endo on login. It's replaced fusion cores and drop tables now, so you can just find it by killing enemies or play mission tables. And you can acquire Endo by dissolving your duplicate mods. So this is a new section of the mod UI. On your landing craft, you'll see the dissolve option, at which time you can start getting those stacks of precepts and other useless duplicate mods and give them more fusion energy than would have been possible on the public build. So that's at a glance look at what has happened today on PC. So open floor.
I agree with Rob. It's nice to be able to convert everything into sort of one resource. There were sort of hidden complexities that, I mean, when I did my video on it, people didn't realize about converting or using duplicates with the same polarity and things like that. There were bits and pieces that people just didn't know. It's also, if you look at like legendary mods, the prime mods, sorry, you can see how much it's going to be until it gets to the next level, which is actually a lot better than having this progression bar that you don't really know quite where you stand. At least now you've got a fixed number, and it's easy for people to say, it's easy to people to have a goal, if that makes sense, to, you know, progress towards.
Yeah, speaking of UI, I think that's one of the cool things about it, is that now it will have a different appearance from the regular mods on the map. And I don't know if they show up differently on the mini map or not, but like me personally, if there's like a mod that drops, I'm sort of like, who cares? But if I see Endo drop, I would definitely go for it. So that's very useful too.
Yeah, it is a different icon on the minimap, as well as, yeah, it's a completely different physical drop now. So, you know, the goal was to simplify at the top level. I think we have done that. Obviously, I'm biased, so I'll let you guys decide if you think, you know, as an end result of this, what's your sort of gut reaction on, aside from the bug of the endless mission rotation stuff. That is a bug. Don't worry about it. We're getting it fixed. But overall.
Now for the fusion Endo system, I don't have really a lot to say other than the fact that I don't feel like Digital Extremes prioritizes their updates very well. You've got a lot of things that are in-game that are game-breaking, things that are very unimmersive and counterproductive, and I feel as though, you know, being a concept artist myself, I can't tell you how many times somebody has come to my page and said, oh, your intro is cancerous, and I'm just thinking to myself, in the back of my head, well, what the fuck have you ever done with your life? Have you, you know, spent 26 plus years perfecting your artwork and then, you know, making it like on a digital canvas? That way you could make a PNG file, take that PNG file and then animate it and throw it into an intro. This shit takes a lot of work. to perfect your craft in you know, the coming of age, you know, growing into your own and becoming an artist, becoming a content creator, it takes a lot of fucking work. And for somebody to just sit there and watch like a 2-minute long intro or a 1-minute long intro and just be like, oh, that's cancerous. No, sir, you are cancer, and I think that you should drink bleach. And I know that that's an opinion that, you know, people are going to say, oh, well, you sound very spiteful, you sound hateful. Yeah, of course I do. You know, if I put a lot of work into it, and it's not bad, I know that it's not bad. You know, people want to make you believe that anything that you work on is terrible. You don't, those people don't get to decide that for you. You get to decide that for you. If you did your best, that's really all that matters. And that's really all that matters with Digital Extremes as well, is that they do their best. And so a lot of the disappointment that's coming from my direction is coming from the fact that we know that they're capable of so much more than what they're doing. So with the Fusion and Endo system, the only gripe that I have to make is that Fusion just wasn't broken. It was functional. It's very much like the chat UI. That wasn't broken either. As a matter of fact, the marketplace and the chat is something that I have progressively used less and less because of the updates. I do not like the updates. I think that they are prioritized horribly. You could have, you know, updated them somewhere way later on down the line, and it would have been fine, specifically because they weren't broken. Maybe make Fusion cheaper and cost less, and that's kind of like a temporary patch, you know, like no different than a radiator that's got a small leak. For a lot of different situations, people would just buy like a stop leak solution for like $15 and then call it good, because a year down the road you'll replace the radiator then and only then. You don't have to do it right at that instant. So it's very upsetting that they prioritize those kinds of things over unique fixes and reworks. So that's really all I have to say about the Fusion and Endo system. The nullifiers, however, the next topic on the list, is something that I want to talk a lot about.
I actually really like nullifiers as a design.
I'm right there with you guys.
I disagree on so many points, and I could go on for hours about what I find problematic with them.
They do have problems, yeah.
One, the way the bubble decays and how that affects weapons with rate of fire or weapons with high damage, such as sniper weapons. People have harped on that for ages, how they are useless against nullifiers. Two, the way it strips your buffs off completely, which is both annoying and just, for a new player, it's kind of an antagonizing experience where, okay, I finally got enough energy to cast Vex Armor on Chroma. Here's a nullifier that just appeared through a door, it clipped me, and there it goes. I don't have the energy and I can't use it again for another who knows how long until I get the energy orbs. And three, the way they spawn with the Void Fissures is kind of annoying right now.
I do agree that the semi-auto weapons should probably have an improved, like, they should do better against their bubbles than they do. Also, I think that it's kind of frustrating, like, if you have a fully maxed weapon and you're shooting, like, a really low-level nullifier, you can, like, pop their bubble in one shot, but you still have to sit there and wait for, like, the 3-second animation of the bubble slowly shrinking. Yeah, so I wish that there was, like, a mechanic where if you deal, like, 200% of their bubble's health, you could, like, pop it immediately.
Like, it would overload their backpack or something.
Because a physical projectile can't be nullified. It just goes through and it pierces them. That'd be a great way to make bows or maybe some sniper rifles useful against nullifiers.
I still want, like I've said it before, back when we had the sniper buff discussion, I still really would love the snipers to be able to be the anti-nullifier weapon. And they had enough velocity just to pierce the bubble and knock out the nullifiers. It would make them a pretty good team weapon, and I definitely would want one in my squad, for sure.
There were some suggestions made by the partners in the podcast how snipers should just automatically go straight through the nullifier bubbles, maybe some bows. There was a lot of talk about it, and again, I feel like, you know, a lot of these people are just kissing Digital Extremes' ass. They're not really talking out or speaking out about how bullshit nullifiers are. The thing is, Warframe is a fast-paced, frantic game, and I'm going to bring that up later on when I talk about the raids, how puzzles don't fit into a fast-paced, frantic game. but which is more of an opinion than anything. But nevertheless, nullifiers. This game is just so fast-paced, frantic, and power-centric. And when I say power-centric, I mean that, like, it really depends on how well you're casting your powers and how good of a team you've put together to take on that mission. And everything that has to do with in-game is based off powers. Like, you can't do anything in Warframe in-game level without having some powers be a factor in the matter. So when you add an enemy that is essentially going to negate a lot of these powers, it's very counterproductive.
People need to stop complaining about them. Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's not fun. Well, guess what? You have to have challenge in a game. Otherwise, then the game's just going to be a cakewalk all the time.
It pisses me off to no other end, because Digital Extremes has demonstrated the fact that they simply do not know and cannot grasp the concept of challenging versus fucking annoying, which is what a nullifier is. It's fucking annoying, and it's broken. That right there is not an opinion. It is broken. And the reason why I can say that confidently is because you have Warframes like Limbo and Mag. When they cast Cataclysm or Polarize, the nullifier doesn't even have to touch them directly in order to cancel their abilities. They can simply walk into the Polarize or the Cataclysm and negate it altogether, which is fucking bullshit. And then Inaros, you know, how I discussed how when he puts on his additional armor, he shouldn't have it pulled off of him. You know, that's a self buff. It's very different than like a Hysteria or an Exalted Blade. Exalted Blade or Hysteria is just like a heightened ability. It's something that you toggle on and off. Like, you don't toggle on and off Inaros' ability. And furthermore, talking about Limbo's Cataclysm, based off the lore, Cataclysm, like, transports that area to the void. So if I walk into the Cataclysm and I too have been transported to the void, why can't I pick up the fucking loot inside that room that I've been transported to the void in? It's understandable if I was banished or if I'm in Riftwalk, but even then you would think, maybe allow Limbo to banish loot? That way I don't have to pop in and out of Riftwalk? Or I don't have to, like, roll out of Banish and have the Limbo cast Banish on me once again. It's just fucking annoying that, like, they think that it's fair to make it so you can't pick up loot. And really, it's not. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And, you know, Fusion and Endo System is getting prioritized over the fact that Limbo has such amazing potential, and he can't live up to it because of that one hindrance. Mace is kind of the same way, dealing with nullifiers. I can't for the life of me figure out why her Peacemaker doesn't damage a nullifier bubble, but yet an Exalted Blade or a Hysteria does. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And I feel like Digital Extremes fails to do this. Completely just tanks this whole concept of challenging. And they're making it so more like it's so much more open to casuals now. Like, if you just build to kill level 100s, you're good, right? Like, that's the only thing you have to build for, because voids are useless now. Like, you go into the void and there's no point in staying in a survival. There's really no point to it. And it upsets me because I love the void. And I also love the relic system. I think that the relic system is a much more efficient way to farm for the parts that you're looking for, but for just general ducat farming, I do believe that the void system should still put out prime parts, because, like, we went to the void for two different reasons. We went there because eventually it gets challenging and therefore fun, and on top of that we were rewarded with a shit ton of ducats, and they shouldn't have changed that. I feel as though the relics and the void should still be in the game. Why not have both options? That way everybody's happy, right? So talking about nullifiers and talking about, you know, Gears of War 3, the way that they handle their enemies versus the way Digital Extremes handles nullifiers, I think it's such a huge piss off that, you know, like, you have something like a Mauler from Gears of War where it's only vulnerable from behind or the exposed areas that the shield isn't covering. And alone, a Mauler isn't a threat. Like, alone, you can maneuver around it, you can avoid it, you can shoot it from behind, you can, like, there's a number of different methods to deal with it, but it was only in those certain situations where you're having to, you know, fall back and your back's to the wall because of all the other forces that are pouring in on you. That was when a Mauler was really scary, because once that Mauler gets mixed up with all the other enemy reinforcements, then it's really challenging because there's not a whole lot you can do. You don't have a lot of space to breathe. And Warframe doesn't do that. Instead, they just have enemies that fucking one-shot you. Like, they get to a certain point where they just do so much damage that they just fucking one-shot you. And I'm one of those people that believe that you should just never be one-shotted. Like, really, never. Like, regardless of what type of enemy you're facing, unless you're fighting like a level 500 something, you shouldn't be one-shotted. I feel like even if you're fighting something level 200 something, nullifiers should never one-shot you. They should, like, shoot you and then, like, damage your shields and, like, leave you with, like, you know, 10 health, something ridiculous like that. That way, like, at least you have a forewarning of, you know, shit getting real and you about to lose. I just hate it. Like, you purposely go to the void as a veteran for that challenge, and then, like, because they're making this game so open to casuals, they kind of punish you, the veteran. Like, if you go into the void now, like, level 40s can do way more damage to you than they ever could before. Never mind the fact that, like, if you go to level 100 gameplay, it's damn near fucking impossible now. Why are level 40s doing so much damage in the void now? Answer me that. And then, again, like I say, that they're making it more available to casuals, but at the same time, there's nothing that really guides the casuals. Like, there's not a very good tutorial on how Warframes play. Like, for instance, Black Desert. Like, when you were getting into a class, like, your skills had, like, little video previews that showed you what those powers did. And it briefly explained why they were good. And the descriptions of the powers that we have now are just completely fail. Like, some of them don't even accurately represent what the power actually does. I mean, don't take my word for it. Go and look at it for yourself. And I just hate the fact that nullifiers are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what is really keeping Warframe from being the best that it could be. The fact that they neglect that they're more of a nuisance and annoying than they are challenging. You know, you want to mix it up. You want to add, you know, something like Cerapedes from Gears of War, something like Tickers. I mean, they already have that in the form of runners, but they don't have Cerapedes. They definitely don't have Brumox. I mean, how fucking awesome would it be to see, like, a T-Rex with, like a giant minigun and a rocket launcher strapped to its back? I'm really not suggesting that they plagiarize off of Gears of War. I'm just suggesting that there be something that's huge and stressful that players have to deal with on top of everything else. I definitely feel like DE should take some look at Gears of War 3 and the Horde mode and all the different types of enemies that do all these different types of things. Essentially, you have Cantuses in the form of Mutilus Moas, you have Tickers in the form of runners. I think of nullifiers as maulers. You've got boomers in the form of bombards. They really have a lot of the different pieces that they need. They're just not using them properly. We don't have a cover system, which is one thing that could definitely help the whole challenging factor, being able to blind fire out of cover. I always loved that about Gears of War. It's why I remained a fan of the series for so long. I just think that nullifiers are a very counterproductive enemy, and I don't agree with the suggestion. I don't agree with people saying that they're not annoying. I mean, they're annoying to everybody, really.
Speaking of squad composition and things, I think we do need to move on to the next topic of raids and trials and ROI for dev to put them out and people that play them. And maybe a few quick remarks here about trials and the way they fit into your day-to-day Warframe.
With the raid development, I remember when Nathaniel was first being reworked that I think it was Steve who was talking about on one of the dev streams, like, this is going to be part of the Corpus raid. But because of the turnout, and I'm sure you guys have the internal numbers that show it, not a lot of people are interested in the trials. And that's probably a combination of the difficulty of putting together a group, the key system, the rewards themselves. Some people are kind of ambiguous as to if they're worth it. There's so much to be discussed with the trials, and I know we don't have too much time to dive into it, but how familiar are you guys with it?
So my clan, they raid a lot, and the general consensus is that they're way too easy. I don't know if the community shares that opinion, but you know, we find them really easy simply because the basic mechanics of it is just standing on a button, right, and keeping your CC up for the entirety of the raid, and maybe putting a decoy in front of Vehek for the Law of Retribution, right? And it's the same with the Nightmare, with a few, you know, quirks, energy drain while standing on the buttons, which can be easily countered with EV Trinity or something. So with experienced players, it's really easy, but what I think the underlying issue with raids is there's no progression into it, and there's nothing explaining how to do the raids more clear. An idea that people in my clan actually had was to implement mechanics from the raid into actual gameplay. Like, for example, in the Jordas raid, you have to have 2 players shoot a button on the walls to, like, deactivate a force field, right, to push a spore through. What if you implemented that mechanic into regular gameplay and explain that in some way, shape, or form? That way, whenever people head into raids, they know how to, you know, complete that part of the raid, because it's sort of just streamlining the process and making the community more sort of, you know, knowledgeable about the raid without actually playing it. That way, they can, you know, they can go into the raid with some sort of confidence, I guess.
The raids. Now, I have aired my grievances about the raids since day one. You gotta, it's just fucking terrible. Like, there's so many people that don't understand the concept of raids, and you know, the partners in this podcast are saying, oh, they're easy. Well, yeah, of course they're easy if you're talking to your friends or your clan, because you can effectively communicate and like know what's going on at all times. But you know, if you're playing it with randoms, in which case you're probably going to do a whole lot more than what you're going to be doing with your friends, because your friends probably have jobs and they can't commit the amount of time that it takes to complete a raid. So you're left playing with randoms who, for whatever the reason, think that they can get off of like pressure plates in the second part of the raid. I can't tell you how many times I've failed because some dumb fuck got off the plate and ran the core into the electricity. Like, it's just so fucking stupid that people don't know. Like, and sorties, like, again, there's so many missions where people go into spy missions and fail the hacking. Like, they get tripped by lasers and they fail it for everybody. And so all that time and effort is wasted because of one person's fuck up. It's not even your fault. Like, that's what pisses me off the most as a member of the community, is when I go and I give it my absolute all. And if it were only me in that mission, I would just pass it with flying colors. I would have utterly dominated it. But because I have somebody who is such a fucking anchor to my team, I lose the mission. I get that on my record. Like, I get to deal with an end screen that says mission failed because some fucktard came in and didn't know what the fuck he was doing. It's just, it really upsets me, and I'm sure that it upsets a lot of people. I know that I speak for a lot of people, even though it's just my opinion, and you should regard it as such. You know, take it with a grain of salt. Like, this is the way that I feel. You don't have to agree with it, but at the same rate, raids just aren't fucking worth it. Like, even if you have fun with them, and I've mentioned before, this is a fast-paced, frantic game. Puzzles don't fucking belong in it. That's my opinion. If you like the puzzles, that's fine. But here's the thing. They could do a lot more with it. Like, one of the solutions would be to, like, make the raid drop, like, 3 arcanes at a time, and then make the Nightmare raid drop 5 arcanes at a time. And all of these arcanes are guaranteed to be different. Because it's just, what pisses me off is, like, not only does the arcanes, like, you have to have like 10 of them for them to fucking matter. You have to combine them all into one. If that wasn't enough of an issue, because it just takes so long to gather them, there's a huge pool of arcanes. Statistically, you're not going to get 10 of the same one. Like, you'd have to be farming for like an entire year, which is absurd. So, like, you go in there, and then on top of that, you have a 24-hour cooldown. You do it once, and then you have to wait 24 hours. Are you fucking kidding me? Why can't I farm it? Like, give me a reason why I can't farm it. Because if I'm in a raid mode, and I feel like I can dedicate 8 hours to a raid, I ought to be able to do the raid at least 5 times per day before I get a 24-hour cooldown. So that's one of the solutions. Take off the 24-hour cooldown. Just take it off. It doesn't fucking belong in the game. Make it so arcanes drop in 3s per normal mission. Make it so nightmare missions, they drop in 5s. You know, make it fucking worth it, because it's not worth it. Like, the amount of time and effort that's poured into a raid, especially when you're playing with randoms that don't understand, it's not worth getting the arcanes. And the partners touched down on whether or not it was worth it, but they didn't cover it. They didn't, like, for the most part, they were just saying that it's easy. Well, it's not fucking easy to the community. To the community who is playing with a bunch of randoms, it's not easy. One person out of the 8 that are there can fuck up the entire thing for everybody else, which is bullshit. And I don't agree. And which is why I would suggest that if you're gonna go the route of puzzles, like, they actually suggested that, you know, they start, like, putting puzzles into normal missions. That way the community can familiarize themselves with how to do the raids. Like, oh, I've seen this before, I know what to do. No! For the love of Warframe and all that is magical within it and majestic, don't fucking do that. Don't you fucking dare put puzzles into normal missions. How dare anybody recommend that suggestion? Fuck that. I think at that point I would fucking quit, because I automatically just hate the raids because of the puzzles. It's a fast-paced, frantic game. That's what I joined the game for, is for the fast-paced, frantic nature, and you're slowing me the fuck down. It's counterproductive having to slow down and solve these fucking puzzles. I gotta stand on a fucking pressure plate and just lifelessly spam these abilities. I might as well be playing fucking Pokemon Go in my other hand while everybody else does the raid and I just stand on this fucking pressure plate. It's so stupid. So no, don't include puzzles into everyday missions. No, instead what you should do, Digital Extremes, is you should make an 8-player raid where it's just an exterminate, right? You go into the void, it's an 8-player void, and it's also in an exterminate mission. But the catch is that the enemies start out at level 100 and only level up beyond that point. The more amount of time it takes, like say 5 minutes, they level up to like level 120. Another 5 minutes, they level up to like 140, 160, so on and so forth. That way, the more time you spend in this raid, the tougher they're going to become. And then throw out a shit ton of enemies. Throw out like 5,000 enemies for these 8 players to deal with. That would be fun. And that would be an option, you know, like, again, the cooldown is an issue. Take off the cooldown completely. That way we can spam it, you know, like 5 times per day. Make it drop more arcanes, because I want to have an alternative. I don't want to have to see puzzles not for a second of my life. I've avoided puzzle games my entire life, only to find it here in a hack and slash shooter. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I hate having to be forced to do the puzzles if I want arcanes. I want options. And that's the thing. This is why this is a good idea, people. We need options. We need variety. We need something to break up the monotony. And I feel the same way about the conclaves. I mean, you've got Lunaro, which I rather play over PvP because their servers are so fucking piss poor. The latency, because of the latency, you know, hosts have an advantage. Like, whoever has the superior connection is basically going to be the one who does well. And don't get me wrong, I am a very skilled player. But even with my skill, I struggle to compete with a lot of the people primarily because like everybody's flipping around at like 90 mile an hour. Conclave needs to be slowed the fuck down. You know, better yet, Conclave needs to be so you don't even play as your Warframe. Fuck using abilities. Fuck flipping around like you're a Mexican jumping bean. Make it so we play as like the Syndicate minions. Simple solution. I mean, even better yet, make us play as our Tennos. Like our children. Make us play as people who have nothing to do with the Warframes. Now, I'm not saying that they remove the competitive aspects of Conclave entirely. I do get that a lot of people play the Conclave and they enjoy it. And for that reason, I would also recommend that you just add like an additional playlist where players don't play as Warframes. Because the servers are piss poor. They really need to they just really need to upgrade to dedicated servers because their servers are shit. They're complete shit. They're almost as bad as Ubisoft servers on the Uplay shit, and Uplay is just so atrocious. It's so bad, like it's fucking terrible. So I do believe that, you know, there should be options for Conclave as well. And if I'm gonna get into that topic, I want to talk about how I'm forced to do Conclave for the skins. Like, look at the pool of rewards that you get from Teshin when you go to the relay, right? Like, you've got like all these mods that help you additionally with Conclave, and that's fine. Those mods should only be achievable by Conclave. That's understandable. But what about the skins? The skins for the weapons, like seriously, you're gonna like. You can't even buy that with Platinum, right? So the only way that you can get those skins is by being forced to compete with people you do not want to compete with. Like, when it comes to Warframe, their PvP system is shit. It's complete dog shit. I don't think I've ever played a PvP system that sucked harder balls. And that's just my opinion. So, like, I'm very competitive. I come from Halo. I come from Gears of War. I was ranked top 5 in the world for the public team deathmatch during the beta. I mean, I have a KD, like a kill death ratio of like plus 49,000 just within the first 4 months. I had the Onyx Godded Arms medal, which dictated that I had to have plus 15,000 kills per starter weapon, all 5 of them. I had that within a week of the game being out. So I am, without a doubt, a hardcore player. But I don't feel like being hardcore in Conclave because the PvP sucks. Like, I don't feel like being competitive because, like, there's just so many issues with it. The latency issue, the fact that, like, everybody's flipping around like 90 mile an hour. I'm struggling to even fucking aim, let alone flip around like what they're doing. It's just bullshit. So it needs to be slowed down. It needs to be, like, power shouldn't have anything to do with it. I can't tell you how many times I've been killed for bullshit reasons, like, you know, an Ember has Firewalker on, or an Ashe threw a fucking shuriken at me from across the map. Like, and that doesn't require any aim. Just, like, look at their general direction, press the power, and bam, it's done. Or the Jet Katag that, you know, I know everybody who's played Conclave knows about that and how much of a piss off that is. My real issue with the Conclave is the fact that we're forced to play it if we want those skins. And I think that if you're going to do Conclave, you should include a mode in which it does not require you to fight other people. It can be broken down into, like, different types of Conclave points. Like, if you do, like, legit PvP, then you get Conclave points across the board. But there's, like, PvE aspects within the Conclave that can go specifically towards the Conclave skins. That way you don't ever have to see PvP if you don't want to see it. Because I'm literally being forced to fight other players, and I don't want to do it because their system sucks. It sucks ass. So why should I have to? Which I have a topic, like, I have more to say about that, which is why I brought it up before I was done with the topic of raids, because I wanted to introduce you to that topic before we get into the topic of Umbra. The next topic that they listed off was Titania, and I'm not going to talk about that here. At least not here, because she's the next god build that I'm going to do. So I will talk more in depth about it there. I just want to take the time to congratulate DE for introducing yet another amazing Warframe to the game. That's pretty much one of the only things that they do perfectly, 10 out of 10. So Titania is amazing. I've enjoyed her. I haven't recorded the commentary for her yet, but I am in the process of recording footage for the actual episode, so that's something to look forward to. So let's get into the last topic that they talked about, which is Umbra.
And I guess we'll end on the Umbra note. 7 agenda topic is Umbra. We'll take a couple minutes here. I don't really know if there's much to talk about with it, but considering the frequency at which this word is mentioned, I feel like it would be a disservice not to bring it up. So go ahead.
I'm excited for the lore and the quest associated with him, but to be honest, I've never gotten the hype around Umbra at all. I mean, he's a cool-looking skin, but that's basically all he is.
I totally get that feeling. If this changes up how the game's actually played in any way, I'll be interested. Because that's something I really liked about the Second Dream, is that it implemented focus, giving us the passives, giving us things like Shadow Step, I believe it's called, giving us the instant revive, which is very helpful in raids. So if it adds more things like that into the game, which sort of changes people's play styles or how they look at a particular build, that'll definitely be interesting.
What I'm really curious about is how it's going to stack up against Excalibur Prime for stats, because when Excalibur Umbra was just kind of shoved out there with the China release, a lot of people were surprised, like, hey, why aren't we getting this? And there was the issue of exclusivity, and some people use that to branch out to like, well, what about Excalibur Prime? What about his exclusivity? Is that ever going to be addressed? I kind of saw Umbra Excalibur as like a way to bridge those two, like a way for players to get that enhanced version of Excalibur without necessarily getting the Prime variant.
I want to temper expectations a little bit here because we have like a huge range of expectations from skin all the way to complete new set of mechanics. So on that scale, let's say skin versus alternative Excalibur versus whole new set of mechanics, whole new sort of Umbra mechanics. Where do you see this? Where would you like to see this fit in Warframe?
I feel like he's probably setting a new standard. After Umbra Excalibur, you know, we'll probably see Frost Umbra and maybe Umbra of everything else. And I'm kind of worried that if they went that direction, we'd just have like another version to farm and we'd have like 3 different Frosts. And I really don't want that, so I'm hoping that he brings something that makes him not just another version.
I thought about that too. I think that doing it just for Excalibur, again, just to build that bridge to the Prime would be fine, and then for other Warframes, just skins. Like, just simply give them skins that look cool.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that too.
Then it's just a big pile of skins. I mean, back in the day when Umbra was the first thing, that would have been amazing, but now we've got 10 Gen, and that's just brings us brilliant stuff. So I was hoping, I think mainly with the way they're obtained, or that they have some special mission that only Umbras can do, or something that's separate to, I mean, they shouldn't be completely different to all the other Warframes, though I do actually, us listening, you guys appreciate if they're the same, it is a bit, or it's just not Excalibur. But I thought maybe there's some unique thing that only they can go and do would be more interesting, so you get into your Umbra to go do something.
I think it'd be cool to give them, like, you know how the Primes, when they're in the Void, they step on a trap, they get a bunch of energy? Give the Umbra some equivalent of that with whatever faction that they represent. Maybe something with sentience.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, maybe if they could trigger traps somewhere, that would be awesome.
Like, to be honest, I like the way I view the Umbras is that they're going to be like sentient corrupted versions of the normal frames. A bit like Stalker's got his acolytes and stuff, that it would be a similar sort of thing maybe for the sentients.
I think it's fun to think about. I obviously can't say anything, but it's definitely an interesting topic just because it's been such a long topic. I feel like aside from Focus back in 2014, this is one of the sort of longest surviving lack of information things we've had in the game. So it's interesting to see how it plays out like this. But I feel like we can just do some closing thoughts now. Not sure if anyone else has anything else to add for any of the agenda pieces, but what do you guys think?
This is a topic that consumed the most amount of time in this podcast. Like, literally, like, the entire last half was dedicated to Umbra. And this is where the podcast kind of fell apart because nobody could really agree upon anything. Like, some people think that it should be it should just be another skin. and that's all it should be. And then other people firmly believe that it should add a different feature to the game, which is why the second Dream Quest was so fantastic. But the thing is when Umbra was first going to come out, I want to state that this has a personal effect on me because Excalibur is my favorite frame, as everyone knows, and it was like scheduled to come out very, very close to my birthday, and that was going to be the best birthday present from Digital Extremes, and they fucking disappointed me. Now it's September again next year. You know, I've waited a full fucking year for Excalibur Umbra, and I still haven't gotten him, so I'm at this point in this video, I'm just going to state that DE, you better fucking release Umbra for this birthday. Like, how dare you ruin 2 of my birthdays in a row? Okay, so I'm gonna say that I both agree and disagree with Umbra being just another skin. And the reason for that being is because I get that the founders want to be, you know, a bunch of pussies. They want to say, oh, that's pretty much just another Prime. Well, the thing is it's not a Prime, all right? But it's something to give to the players who missed out on the Prime, because not everybody was aware of Warframe when Excalibur Prime was a thing, and they couldn't capitalize on that deal. And for those players, they need something that can be an equivalent. And founders, instead of being a bunch of fucking pansies, they should understand that. They should understand the fact that not everybody was around to support it, whether they wanted to or not. And furthermore, if you're going to go that route and you're going to release Excalibur Prime, which I think they should also release additional things for founders, like give them more in-game, like come out with something else that's exclusive or going to be exclusive for a year before it enters the global build, and then give founders another thing that's going to be exclusive for another year or a couple of months. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that way founders are always going to get their money's worth. Like, they supported the game at a very early stage in development, and they helped it become what it is. And DE could show appreciation for them by continuously giving them stuff, while also acknowledging the fact that everybody should have an opportunity to eventually get what they got initially. So, moving forward from that Prime descent and how everybody gets so fucking upset over digital content, which is absurd, we take into consideration the Umbra series. Now, the only reason it was prevented was because the founders got all fucking pussy hurt. And they had to make a big deal about how it was basically just another Prime. So now that Umbra is actually going to come out, the community is torn. You know, we were thinking that it was just going to be a skin, but since it's going to be included in this quest, we're thinking that it should add some more features. Yes, I think Umbra should just be another skin, and that's really the only importance that it should serve, other than the fact that it's going to have increased stats just like a Prime would. But I also agree that it should come with some features that don't directly affect the game. And what I mean by that is, I would like to suggest something, but before I can get to that suggestion, I wanted to state that it wouldn't be required to do this. It would kind of just be a preference thing. There, you know, the partners in the podcast talked about how, you know, how Primes, when they enter the void, they step on like traps, and then they get energy from the death orbs and whatnot. And they were thinking that Umbras should do something like that on like more sentient tile sets. I disagree. I think that's a horrible idea in comparison to the idea that I'm about to present to you. How do I even... This is such an epic suggestion. Just wait for it, okay? Alright, so DE has been struggling for a while on how to bring back the solar rails and make it be PvP. Does anybody even remember that? Like, do you guys remember when the solar rails first came out and they made us compete over these different districts throughout the solar system? That was a pretty interesting concept, right? Like, it was hit and miss. Like, you either loved it or you hated it, and sometimes you loved it and hated it. Regardless of what you thought about it, it got to be very repetitive. So here's the thing. The Orkin labs still exist in our dojo, and you still have Spectre regiments. Do you see where I'm going with this? So those are just kind of sitting there, not doing anything, collecting dust. And Digital Extremes has already been thinking about for a while now how they could potentially like implement the solar rails back into the game. So this is how my suggestion ties into the topic of Umbra and the raids. So basically you could have a raid that would be set up in the Conclave, and the raid itself would be pretty much the old version of the solar rails. And how this would work is, if you are an Umbra user, if you possessed an Umbra Warframe, you could set up a trial within the Conclave. You could like throw in Spectre regiments, and you could provide a challenge for all of the people who don't want to fight other players in PvP. So you're understanding what I'm saying so far, right? You go into the Conclave, and one of the playlists is like Solar War. What I mean, the name doesn't matter. So like one of the playlists is Solar Rail, and then when you go into this playlist, it operates the same way the solar rails used to operate. You go in and you basically fight a lot of specters, and maybe there could be an opposing team. That part really doesn't matter. What matters is that Umbra users could make it more difficult or more helpful for anybody playing. So for instance, if I was just a random player and I wanted to get Conclave standing, but I had a friend of mine who's in the clan with me, and he has an Umbra, he could send with me the Cosmic Regiment to help me in this Conclave mission, which is essentially going to operate like a raid. It's going to allow 8 players to go in and attack. But each of the raids would be set up by other Umbra users throughout different clans. So other Umbra users would be making it more difficult, while Umbra users in your clan would be making it easier. Do you get what I'm saying? And like how they would do that is Umbra users would have control over the specters. And the reason why they would have that control over the specters is no different than the Stalker and his influence on his acolytes. Stalker is an Umbra. It says that in his wikia. So like basically what we're doing here is, as Umbra users, we're customizing our specters. And you could take it one step further by allowing people who had Umbra Warframes to customize the looks of their specters. That way, like if you see yourself as Batman, you now have your Robin to help you in missions. How cool would that be, to finally be able to customize the way your specters look? What I'm suggesting here is that if Excalibur Umbra is going to be released into the game, let him have influence over specters. That way, like, he can open up the doorway to this new, unique Conclave playlist that, like, combines elements of raids and PvP. Like, how awesome would that be if you could do a raid? If you could, like, if there was an actual raid in the Conclave playlist and it didn't have anything to do with PvP. You could just go in there and you could earn Conclave points through this, and Umbra users had like exclusive, like they had a way to play a role within this system. I don't know, I'm just all about variety. I'm just all about, not forcing anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. And that's mainly what it's about, is the fact that, I don't want to do PvP and I don't want to do puzzles. So introducing, Umbras into the game where you have influence over specters, and you could make it tougher for other players when they go into the Conclave and they do the solar rails. I just think that that would be such a badass idea, and I can't even fathom how the YouTube partners don't think on the same wavelength as I do. But therein lies the problem with who they choose as their partners. They decline me, while they have people who kind of force their personal life upon you in their videos. Shots fired. So if you like this video, it's always nice if you give it a thumbs up, share it to your buddies, and I've got a contest going out where I will be giving away the microphone that I used to use before this one, so if you want to check that out, I'm going to put the link in the description along with everything else that is always there. Check out my stream that's going on every Friday at 6 p.m. Maybe not every Friday, but for the most part, it's going to be happening this Friday, which is probably already passed by the time this video is uploaded, and the Friday to come, because I am doing a Let's Play series every Friday. So thank you guys so much for supporting me. Really, I wouldn't even be doing this video or voicing my opinion if it weren't for the fact that you guys are incredible and support me with everything I do. I don't get nearly as much hatred as I do support. Like, I get 70% support versus like 30% hatred, and 15% of that being like just utter dumb shits that I don't even understand how they wake up and remember to breathe. So thank you guys so much for supporting me the way that you have. It's been an amazing year. It's changed my life quite a bit. And I hope to connect with you guys on a level that I've never been able to before, which is why I keep progressively doing more and more. So again, if you like the video, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And until next time, peace.